Johnson. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Leader Jim Durkin. I'm pleased to be here with my counterpart, Leader Bill Brady from the Senate. I'm also joined by members of my caucus, Representative Keith Wheeler, Representative Tim Butler, Representative Lindsey Parkers, and Representative Jerry Long. We stand here today again in solidarity to ask that the General Assembly introduce and certify a revenue estimate immediately. We have seemed to have forgotten year after year in this Capitol, particularly the Democrat majority, that adopting a revenue estimate is required by state law. This is not some idea that might be helpful in the budget process. This is not a public relations ploy to cause a stir and get people riled up over nothing. It is our legal and constitutional duty to certify a revenue estimate and to live within our means in Illinois. It's a simple concept. Revenues cannot exceed spending. This ensures that legislators are on notice about how much we can spend in this upcoming fiscal year. And what is wrong with that? Nothing. Don't we owe that to the people of the state of Illinois, the taxpayers of Illinois? The point of the revenue estimate is simple. It helps us understand how much money we have to spend before we decide to go about spending it. The revenue estimate is simple to understand. It is exactly like balancing a checkbook. We are taught that we should not be spending money that we don't have. And as you know, the practice of spending without knowing what funds are available is the norm in this Capitol. The taxpayers deserve to know how their money is being spent. It is their money, not our money, as some in the legislature seem to believe. What's more frustrating, that this is not a partisan issue. COGFA and the Bureau of the Budget provide the legislature with fairly accurate revenue estimates every single year. We are asking for the General Assembly to adopt a revenue estimate of $37.672 billion provided by COGFA. With the revenue estimate, committee members are now able to work their way through agency budgets and attempt to stay within the revenue bounds that they have been allotted. I must ask, what is the purpose of appropriation hearings if our members do not know how much they can or should appropriate? How is this common practice acceptable? I'm standing here to say that it is not acceptable, and it is legislative malpractice and unconstitutional. I've sent Speaker Madigan 2 letters in the last 2 months asking that we work on a revenue estimate. We are approaching the month of May, and I have not received a response. We cannot wait any longer. The day of fiscal reckoning is here. We must certify a revenue estimate as soon as possible and work in good faith towards passing a balanced budget for the people of Illinois. And I'm calling on all 4 caucuses to adopt this revenue estimate resolution immediately. I will now turn it over to Leader Brady for his remarks.
Thank you, Leader Durkin, and to the members of the Illinois General Assembly for being here. I stand here as a spokesperson for the Senate Republican caucus as well. We've learned the failings of a court-ordered spending plan that was dealt to us by an impasse. This initiative, as well as the initiative that the governor has put in place to come about a budget in a bipartisan way by introducing a balanced budget, as he did in his budget address, is what is necessary. What's necessary here is the General Assembly take the first step in resolving itself to a revenue number. You know, when businesses create their budgets, they start with an estimate of what their revenue, and then they work to live within their means. This is, I think, a very simple task that we're asking our Democratic colleagues to join us so that we can put this aside and then begin the process of allocating the resources under this resolution to appropriately meet the needs of the people of Illinois and provide the balanced budget that Governor Ronner has put in place. So I think this is a very simple task. It's something that Leader Durkin and I discussed with Senate President Colleton as well as Speaker Madigan at our last meeting, and it's time to complete this step of the process if we're going to meet the deadline to pass a budget in May. Be happy to respond to any questions.
I think we're going to have Representative Wheeler will have the final comments.
Perfect. Thank you. Representative Keith Wheeler from the 50th District, representing parts of Kane and Kendall counties. I'm in my 4th year in office, and I just am still stunned the fact that we have not at one time actually seriously taken up a revenue estimate while I've been in office. As a freshman member, I asked virtually every single time an appropriations bill or some other bill that would force government spending to take place, why don't we have a revenue estimate first? How do we know if we just piecemeal all these bills together if we're going to go past what our expected revenues would be if we haven't determined what those revenues are? So again, being a freshman and not knowing my way around, I did a little bit of research with the help of staff. The COGF Act requires us to do this. This isn't a may, this is a shall. And it's a common sense shall. First step first. Let's determine how much we have. Then we can break it up into, figure out how much each appropriations committee is going to work on. I serve on general services, which is a pretty complicated appropriations committee. We've heard hours and hours of hearings and testimony and packets of numbers you wouldn't believe. Never used any of them because we actually never have followed the process because we won't start with the first step first. So I implore my colleagues, both chambers, both sides of the aisle, let's put this together and get this done. Thank you.
Gentlemen, what's the income tax rate in this scenario?
It maintains.
I thought you guys were going to roll it back to 3% or something.
Well, it's conditioned upon it. We'd like to, and that is a goal that the governor set out, and that's also if we can get a pension reform bill, and that's where we're tying it to, but this is all part of the budgeteering process, and I would love to have it rolled back. Now, I can't say that I can speak for the Democrats, but this is what the governor has asked, that we gradually roll back on that, but it's got to be, we supplement that with a good pension reform bill, which has been sitting idle in the House of Representatives for the past 2 years.
So you requested 2 weeks ago when the governor and the legislative leaders all met that there be a revenue estimate done. What has moved in that time? What conversations have you had with Democratic leaders on that front, or are we in the
None, that's why we're here.
So
I've asked him twice. I don't need to go on bended knee over to the Speaker's office. He knows exactly what my request is and what my caucus request is. And this has been ongoing for years, but I memorialized it in 2 letters within the last few months to the Speaker. And if we can't follow the law of Illinois nor the Constitution, it just begs the question, what the heck are we doing down here? And that's why we're in the situation where we're at. And that's just so irresponsible and so reckless. We should not be living off of have budgets that have ongoing unbalanced natures to them, where we have bills that are continually to be unpaid.
Are the budget working groups doing anything in the absence of a revenue estimate?
They're working. I'm not sure exactly the nature of it. I'm always suspicious about what the intentions of the majority party will be. Our goal is to leave in time at the end of May with a balanced negotiated budget, but the politics in November make me suspect on whether or not there is really going to be a true intention to get this done.
Well, you know, this is the impetus. We were very clear to both the Speaker and the President of the Senate that we wanted a revenue number. They've failed to produce one, so I would fully expect they will not be surprised by our introduction of this. And I'm hopeful that they will embrace it. If they don't embrace it, I think Leader Durkin is right to be suspect of their part of the process. Either way, we have an obligation to the people of the state to work toward that, and this is a necessary step.
What do you say to those who are more than likely going to say, and I've already heard from one representative, this is capitulating to that tax increase?
Listen, the governor had a responsibility to realize that he had a responsibility to provide a budget that was realistic and balanced. He did that. To believe that the Democrats would ever be willing to roll back the tax increase they imposed last year, we felt was unrealistic. If they want to do that, we will embrace it. Come up with your number. What we simply asked them is, this is a balanced budget with the revenues that they put in place, the tax increase they put in place. There's no question about it. But they control the gavel. For us to presume that they would be willing to take a step back and relieve the taxpayers of that tax increase, we thought was unrealistic. As Leader Durkin has said, if they want to provide a budget and they want a lower number, we'd like to see their resolution and how they're going to arrive at it. We're confident that our members could work toward balancing a lower number if they're willing to roll back that tax increase they imposed.
$37.6 billion revenue estimate. Do you have to spend all of that? Does the revenue estimate require you to spend all of that?
No.
Can you elaborate a bit on?
Well, it just says that we are to, the law states that we are, by statute, to adopt or modify the estimates. We're allowed to modify the estimates. But for a starting point, that's the whole purpose of this section of the state law, is a starting point to be able to know what your revenues will be coming, what you'll be working with on the upcoming fiscal year. It's up to the chambers to decide whether or not they want to exceed, which will not be coming from us, but we think we should lower it. That's why we believe that the statute allows for the modification, and we would gladly work at a lower number. I would love to be able to pass a budget that is actually less than what we estimate.
Well, what is the point if the Democrats or anyone else blows that number? What's the point of having a revenue estimate?
Well, first of all, it's required by statute. So we're simply meeting our statutory obligation, which we have consistently tried to do without success in the past years. So this is a requirement. We don't want to delay this anymore, because then that just gives an opportunity for the people who aren't serious about a budget to say, well, we don't even have a revenue estimate. Yes, we do. COGFA, a bipartisan organization, has a revenue estimate that we're willing to embrace to move the step forward.
There has not been a revenue estimate adopted since 2014, and look what has happened to our budget process and also our backlog of bills.
You know, the governor, the last time he was here, before he left for his trip, threw some shade at COGFA. He said he wasn't sure they were all that accurate and didn't think they were much of a gold standard. Now, I paraphrase, but, you know, he's not that impressed.
I think the governor will embrace this starting point. I don't want to speak for him, but I'm confident that he'll embrace this as a positive move and a good starting
Now, the
point.
governor is very supportive of us working off and starting with this revenue estimate, and he and I and the leader have talked about that over the last month.
The governor is also advertising and campaigning, saying he's going to roll back the Democrats' 32% tax increase. Mr. Senator Brady, you said it's unrealistic to think we're going to get that low. Is it unrealistic for him to campaign that way and basically promise people he's going to cut back the tax to 3.75?
I applaud the governor's initiative to save $1 billion for the taxpayers by adopting President Colleton's pension reform initiative. So what I also applaud is the fact that that savings wasn't built into this budget because it's unrealistic. Whatever we do in pensions, we know will be challenged. So the idea of tying $1 billion in tax savings to the taxpayers through pension reform, I think, is masterful, but it doesn't cripple this budget. This budget is based on sound principles, sound revenues that we're indicating here.
Senator Brady, what's the mood like in your caucus now that Senator Sam McCann has announced a third-party bid for governor?
I'd say nothing that surprised us, so I don't think there's any change. Senator McCann announced 30 days ago that he was going to run as an independent for something. Are we happy about it? No. We think he's trying to be a spoiler. We're not sure it works, but he's free to do what he wants.
Do you think he's a pawn of Mike Madigan, as the governor has suggested?
Well, I think he's being used by the Democrats. Yes.
You know,
Just one question on the revenue estimate. A couple of letters to Madigan, you've got a resolution here. What else can you do in the GOP caucus to get this passed?
We can slow down things in the House of Representatives. You know what? We've shown this week, in the last 2 weeks, that when the Democrats are not going to be fair with us, that we could make the process not so easy. But I just, again, the point of this is that it is a damn state law, which we do not follow.